Deborah Hendricks, David Brown, and myself are up at Frederica, the old family place on the Frederica River on St. Simon's Island, Georgia, and I think it's April 22nd, 2008. And it's about 11 o'clock in the morning. This is boards that have been covering an entrance. It's squared off. We think this might have been sort of a cooking pit perhaps inside. It'll make a little bit more sense when we see inside. Inside, right there is sort of a troughed area where it's just bare dirt, and then it goes to a wooden floor just slightly past that. And I think Deborah is going to come inside and we're going to have a look. The ground outside is higher, and it's actually washing back in here as we get rains. This would have been a stove vent, and chances are that my father and his brothers used that for heating and maybe doing tea water and stuff like that. This was kind of neat. It's like from an auto body shop. You'd see the same sort of thing now. And it was covered with rusty bits of things and a couple of spiders and all that. And we found a great pull-out drawer, but nothing was on it. We were so disappointed. Over here, there's a rotting door. It was a solid wood door. And we have an old outboard motor. And this is particularly great. I just love this. My Uncle Bob was a hi-fi buff, and during the very early 50s he made this cabinet himself, and it's got a turntable inside, and it's Gromer Works over here, and it's a different manufacturer of the turntable, and I can't remember what it was. But up here we have all sorts of interesting bits and pieces. Here's an old brass lantern, and let's see. This would have been part of a pier. It would have been just the same on both ends, that ropes on a ship would have run back and forth there. And got oarlocks and different things up here, bits and pieces. This is an old brass grease gun. And it's just an interesting variety of stuff. Here's a small outboard motor, part of it anyway, up here. I think the propeller is missing, and the bottom part of it's missing up here. Here's one of the oarlocks. And we found this. This was made in Japan. I believe it was probably a goose, and we're missing part of it. We've just found all sorts of stuff here. My father was using this as a workshop in the 30s and 40s. And we found things in there from the Stevens Taylor garage that was down at the pier, old checks and business cards and things like that, and odds and ends. Dave found this animal trap over at the old barn. We'll see the old barn again in a minute. And over at the old barn area, we found this recently, and it looked very similar. Brought it in. It's the same as this one. And let's see, we have found things like this old door latch, and we never did know what this was. I just think that's marvelous. It looks like almost an oil lamp or something. And hinges from off the one of the barn doors. They're huge. And this is part of an alarm clock. I wish I brought my gloves in. There's spiders around, and I'm just so brave. And this is, I think Deborah had gotten this before, like a sickle or scythe, something like that. And I've moved a lot of this stuff that was a little more fragile out of here. But from over at the barn, we found this. We thought that was interesting. God knows what that was for.
Well, that's a red top tube.
And it was
for drawing blood.
Well, it was out there in the dirt around the barn. And we found lots and lots of different variations of this, this type of thing. And we found, my father was always playing with clocks, you know, pieces and bits of clock wheels and things.
And those are lenses then for
it could well be, or a watch or something. There's no telling. And found different pieces of glasses, and found a wine glass broken, but I thought that was kind of neat. And a ketchup bottle, I think. and lots of these little type of beef jar type things, dried beef. And some of the prettier ones I've already taken out of here and moved them. And over here we have a collection. We found a couple of what might have been like cold cream jars, a Pepsi bottle back here. We found an absolutely beautiful knee-high bottle the other day. This one I thought was just great fun, and I'll probably throw it away yet. It's got a broken neck, obviously, but it was, what was it? Can you read that? Altschul, A-L-T-S-C-H-U-L, Altschul
Distillery.
Thank you, Distilling Company, and Dayton, Ohio. And it's got an A with like a beer barrel through it, and it says trademark. I just thought that was neat. It's got very pretty shoulders on the bottle also.
Let's see if we can get this light in here. It's really cool. So. I'm not going to be able to get that. That's okay.
And we found a couple more oar locks and things like that. And I think some of those we've moved out of here. I'm trying to think of what is new that we've found. Just kind of a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Oh, this was exciting. This was the Spanish book we just found from the old barn. And it's Made Simple Self-Teaching Encyclopedia Spanish, 17. I didn't think to look for a date. Spanish Made Simple. And it's obviously got some damage to it. And let's see. Cadillac Publishing Company Incorporated. And I was trying to see if there was a copyright date. Embarrassing to be doing this. 1955, so it's not terribly old. My Uncle Harry, Aunt Anne's husband, used to love studying Spanish. And he gave me a lot of his old Spanish books, and I just bet this was his. This is one of the slats, and you can see where, when this was originally made, you had quite a gap here. And they put these over that, you know, to keep wind from coming in as drafts. And I just thought that was pretty neat, you know, just little touches of ingenuity. And this is the house. It was from the 19th century, but you can't see any part of the original home. It was originally very small, and it was one story. Just about 2 rooms. It had a little kitchen area and a bedroom is all I can remember, and my family lived in that the first 6 years of my entire life. And we were all staying, I think, in one bedroom. There was not a bathroom. This house used to be attached to the Stubbs house, kind of by a catwalk, and also off the catwalk was a bath building. Over here to the left, my sister and husband Ben take target practice against this little board. And obviously some kids have come out at some point because there's a little bit of broken glass out here, and they've taken pot shots at things too. And if you go off from here, the land goes out in a little point going along the barn, and as it scoops back this way, it has the dike go off of it. And the dike goes over to Palm Island. And at the far end of Palm Island, there's a dike on that side. And just off these trees right here, there are the 2 oyster shell encrusted boat rails going out. Well, two rails. And over here, this is a home that, oh gosh, can't think of the guy's name. Fred. We'll get rid of that part later. But this was a part of Stephen's property that was sold to these folks, and they built a home right there. It's quite high tide right at the moment, and it's been recently a full moon. It's just past it. So I think the tide might be a little higher than usual, and I don't know actually what stage it's at, but it is toward high tide. But a few days ago, I was out here mostly at a lower tide, and a raccoon was just going along just like that. And there's a gorgeous boat just downriver. And the family had a home that was built right on top of the magazine. And I've heard different stories, one that it burned and another that it came down in a hurricane. But anyway, the home is not there anymore, obviously. It was taken over by the National Park Service in the 40s. And prior to that, in the early 1900s, it was given by a great aunt to the colonial dames to make a small park out of it. I think it was a great aunt, but to make a park out of. And then the federal government came in later and condemned additional area around that, and to make a larger little national park. And we had family living on it at that time. They were forced to move. And that's a shot toward the house. And the smaller bridge that's closer is the Intercoastal Waterway. And farther off to the right, that is the Sidney Lanier Bridge. Absolutely huge bridge. Out here the day it broke. I think it was just around Easter about 4 years ago, and it must have had sort of a 30-40 mile an hour wind and waves and everything, and Bobby Stubbs got out here in his boat, was standing out there, and he's a professional tugboat captain, and he was on that thing, and he was putting ropes on it and anchors to stabilize it, and Jeannie came out, cousin Jeannie Schilf, she was Kaufman at the time, came out here and was helping Bobby with the ropes, and she's a yachts person and she knows about boats, and I was trying not to get in the way and trying not to get hurt, but trying to help, and I was kind of sliding across my bottom because this thing really was bucking like a horse, and I got the biggest splinter you ever saw in my bottom, and about 6 months later it came out. When I was a little girl, Deborah, Mom was off working, and she had left me with I believe it was her nanny that she had when she was born, and the lady's name was Belle. And Belle had lost me. I must have been sort of about a year old and just toddling. And I got over here in the marsh grass, and that's dangerous. There are all sorts of things, and plus, you know, the danger of the tides and all. And a blimp from Glencoe Naval Air Station was passing overhead, and they pointed me out to Belle so she could get me out of the marsh. And just off to the left, we have a dead pine, and last year that was alive. And we had blue herons nesting in there. Don't know what killed it, but it was great fun watching the herons nesting and watching them walk up and down the tree. This home was built, I can't remember exactly, but about the 1880s, and it's been added on to many times. And a family lives here, Mary and Bobby Stubbs, and right now they have a daughter and grandchildren visiting from Charleston, South Carolina. And this is the old well. This was standing a little bit more, but it fell the day Uncle Ben died, and that was November 5th, 1975. This well fell in. And the legend is that during the Civil War, slaves of the family, it's kind of the family butler, protected the family silver by throwing the silver down the well to keep the Yankees from getting it. And anyway, from here, and we're here on Mary and Bobby Stubbs' property, we're going to swing around here and show the Stubbs barn. And the brown horse is Ben, and the white horse is Sweetie. And this is a replacement barn for one that, well, this is just one that they use for their horses now. We had an older barn off to the right-hand side, and it has recently fallen in about 3 or 4 years ago, and it was a replacement for a barn that burned. Meredith Stubbs, Mary Stubbs.
The ghost story is by her. I'm Mary Stubbs.
And I'm Donna Webb, formerly Donna Stubbs.
Okay. And she's going to tell you about seeing the ghost.
Okay, so about 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, 23 years ago, I was sleeping and I woke up in the middle of the night, and sitting between my bed and the door was an old desk with an old lamp and my grandfather writing and sketching on the desk. And the appearance was a transparent figure.
But he had been gone for
That he had passed
10
away in
10 years,
in our house 10 years before.
I think.
And we started seeing more activity around the house when we started renovating. We stripped layers of wallpaper off the walls. We sanded the hardwood floors, and things were just happening. Doors could open every once in a
Chairs
while.
rocked.
You would hear footsteps down the, hear the 100-year-old floors, you know, with footsteps walking down the hall. Yeah.
And you want to turn around and say, who is it? But there's nothing there, nothing. So, pretty cool.
What was the name of the band?
Ben
Yes.
Stevens.
Grandfather was Benzie Stevens.
We call him Benzie.
And who else? Oh, and then one more story that was retold by me, but it was from my niece that's 18 now. When she was like 3 years old, she was sitting in the living room in this house, and she was just talking, carrying on a conversation. And so my mom, which is her grandmother, came in to see what was going on, and she said, well, who are you talking to? And Amber said, oh, I'm just talking to Nana. So Nana was my mom's mom, who lived in this house and was the great-grandmother, but Amber had never met her. So we were curious as to how she knew about Nana. What?
She did.
She might have been visiting, and it was her
Christmas.
house,
It
so
was Christmas, and it was all
fair for her to
decorated, so she
visit
came to see.
her great-grandchildren. So
And what year was that? Do you remember?
Oh,
she's 18, so 15 years ago.
About 89, 80. No.
Yeah, 15.
I don't know. Nana died in 86, I think. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
But
15 years
anyway,
ago.
it was just about 3 years after Amber was born that summer. I mean, that next year. So she never even knew Nana. Didn't ever.
Never met her.
And
really
Mary
strange.
said that she did not usually decorate for Christmas, and she thought her mother came especially to see how the house was decorated.
Yeah. I had all of her decorations, and I thought I'd better get them out, you know. So I did.
And the other ghost, the one that Donna saw, was the husband of that, the lady,
Of Nana,
of the ghost
yeah.
that came at Christmas. No.
Yeah.
The ghost
Very
that came. I loved it.
Yeah. And now they just come periodically. We haven't seen them in a while, but they'll be back.
I hadn't realized it was supposed to be Uncle Ben.
Yeah, it was
that's cool.
definitely.
White hair.
It was definitely.
I mean,
his,
it looked like Ben to her.
Oh, okay, okay.
I didn't know who it was, but she was just telling the
No,
story,
it was
and it
definitely.
was somebody
Yeah.
Well,
old.
he used to paint and stuff. That's
That makes, you know, it makes
gosh.
sense.
See,
So.
I love that. That's so
That-
cool. My father had a work shed that went this way at one point, and it was tin roof with poles, no sides on it, and he used this, you know, as a workshop area as well as this. And I was up here in the 1970s, long after he had stopped using this, with Michael Smith, and one of us leaned against one of the posts, and it just slowly collapsed. It's amazing it didn't hurt anyone. And Daddy always wondered what I had done, or Michael had done, to make that collapse. He never believed that we were totally innocent.
We are standing with our backs towards the river, facing east. The barn fell towards us and to the right. Prior to this, you'll see in the previous film, there were a number of limbs that had fallen on the barn, which may have precipitated the collapse of the barn. If you look to your right, there are at least 4 dead trees with numerous missing limbs. Now moving to the north towards the Stubbs property, this is some of the roofing tin that was surplused from the former lean-to on the east side of the barn. All of these rusty hunks of metal were either partially buried or totally buried to the east side of the barn. That's towards the ocean. Next to the tin is a laydown grid for the timber that Mary Ann judged worth saving.
We're going to try to recycle some of that, maybe.
Behind the laydown grid towards the Stubbs barn is some of the timber that wasn't worth saving. Immediately to the right of the laydown grid, you can see the blue enameled bowl that was used by some itinerants to have a fire inside the barn at some point in the past. Those are the ashes that were in the bowl. All of this was found inside the barn. Now we are on the north side of the barn looking south. You can see the old loft entrance. There has been significant removal of debris,
Including
dirt,
those large hinges.
and rotted wood. Immediately to the right, it appears to be a rail to the old train system that Mary Ann's father ran at the casino.
This barn was scary when I was a little girl in the 1950s. I was born in 1952. It had a floor and it had a loft. And this is a barn that just collapsed about 3 or 4 years ago. But it was scary back then. We used to store some of our toys in here. And this is a rail from my father's miniature railway. He had a train that he built called the Island Chief. It was a miniature train. It was just beautiful. It was red and white. And this is one of the rails.
If you take a look, there's more than one rail down on the ground. The rain has uncovered another, so we don't know how many of the rails are actually on this side of the barn. They were probably laid out on the side of the barn as the barn fell towards the river. Now Mary Ann is showing a number of shoes were found in the northeast corner of what would have been the barn. Apparently,
a fancy pair of men's, are they called wingtips, Deborah? Something like that, maybe. And this was a baby shoe. Oh, and you've got to get the very, very, very famous chicken bone. Or bone. We don't really know what this is. I just think that it's so delicate. It reminds me of an airplane propeller. we found this morning. Deborah says it's a porcelain caster. This is part of a graphite fishing rod, and some more of these shoes. All the shoes were found just slightly under the lean-to part of the barn outside.
Now, the Bobby stubs indicated that the northwest section of the barn used to store jars and bottles for the family. And you can see some of the jars and bottles still under the debris.
And we have a collection at this point of glass bottles and broken glass. I just know something's going to get this.
Why don't you just pick one up?
Sorry, couldn't help it.
Well, this one's not very exciting. I'll just throw this one away. This is like maybe a mayonnaise jar or something. But we have found a few that were nice. In fact, the knee-high bottle came from just on the other side over here with nice embossing. Deborah, we have this. Oh, that's a light, probably. And here are some more of what were probably like dried beef containers or something like that.
That looks like it might have been just a plain glass.
It might have been just a glass. And here's some more glassware in here. It looks like maybe a lampshade type thing, for an outdoor light or something. And the old mattress frame.
Now moving towards the ocean or east, you can see that we found a rather large nut. In any event, immediately behind Mary Ann, she's going to point it out now, is where we think the original corner of the barn is.
Are we talking about right here?
Yes. You'll see that there were red brick in addition to cinder block. You'll also see the remains of the floor joist or the outside wall. So you can see that the barn fell a good distance.
Would this have been here on this one?
Actually, it would be turned the other way. On the cinder block, we found pieces of metal that were put down.
Do you remember up or?
The protected side is the one that was down. Like that.
Okay.
And this was used, we think, to prevent the wood that was placed on these cinder block supports from being attacked by bugs. Now, Deborah is going to turn and look to her right, and you'll see that the barn's outer wall, we think, used to be on top of these red bricks. From this angle, you can see when the barn fell south, it hit that magnolia tree and turned up the edge of the barn. You can also see what was originally stored along the wall of the barn. There were a number of window frames with glass. There was what looks like to be a fertilizer spreader with buggy wheels.
Was a baby buggy.
There were also, as you look here, you can see a number of other implements that we have not yet uncovered, some of them aluminum. Looking down at Deborah's feet, you can see how the various bits and pieces of metal uncover themselves after raking and a rain. Thatcher, why don't you lift that up for her?
What, this one over
No, the one at her toe.
Oh, I'm sorry.
As you can see, roots have actually grown through these.
And sometimes when you lift these up, you'll be surprised by big red ants and that sort of thing, but they don't seem to be interested in biting people. They just seem to be interested in taking shelter. We hope that continues to be the case.
Moving towards Deborah's left or south, you can see where the magnolia tree lifted the barn up. You can also see where the roof runners were snapped off as they hit the magnolia tree. Why don't you show that, Hot Chuck?
Which one, Dave?
The broken boards where the roof.
Oh, sorry. I'm not certain which one you're talking about there. Oh, this is where the metal piece goes under this magnolia root. We think that's interesting. The roots actually grow over that. And what am I supposed to show, Dave?
Show where the boards are snapped, where they bent back.
Are you talking about in here?
Well, actually, these boards did not snap because they did not hit the magnolia
Are you
tree.
talking about right here?
Yes.
My best Vanna White?
And if you turn to your left, you'll see where the others snapped off and have been
Wait,
removed.
now this is the left.
Turn around a little to your left, you'll see where the other boards are
Right
snapped off. Yes.
But that hasn't been recent, was it, or?
It snapped when
you've thrown
it
that
hit.
one away?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Looking inside the barn, you can
There
see
are lots of
where
nails, the square nails, and
the roof rafters and cross supports snapped when the barn hit.
are you talking about over here?
Yep. And you can see the cross supports are snapped. If you take a look, you can also see to the left a mattress, a heater, what appears to be some type of bookcase,
Over here?
various and sundry pieces of glass.
There were some nice worked pieces of wood in here, but they've been eaten, sadly, and obviously this was a magazine or book of some sort here. That's a little bit better. Oh, this is great. A little bit better here. Looks like it was a
Moving
small
to your
book.
right, you can see an old wooden box and some tires that used to be in the ceiling.
Just about this position, Deborah, we found, as we were scuffing around, there was a plate. It was the old heavy china plates they would use like in a diner. It was white. I think it was made in, I want to say Philadelphia, but we have that. And we didn't even see it at first, and it just kind of gradually came to light. And it's in wonderful condition.
Moving back east, you can see the cinder blocks laid out in a support grid for what we expect was a lean-to. We removed all the roofing tin and the various and sundry pieces of decaying wood that supported the lean-to. Over on the far side, you can see the various sheets of tinned steel or tinned iron that were used on top of the cinder blocks to protect the wood from insects.
You're always afraid that something's going to come out from under these things. We haven't had that happen yet. And obviously we've had some insects nest out here and things. Don't know what that piece of wire is for, but there's just all sorts of stuff. It's an amazing accumulation. We're looking at this barn from another angle, You can see that the roof is pretty much shot, and over here, this is one of the nails. It's a square-headed nail, absolutely huge. And I don't know if it was one of these ones, you know, that a blacksmith would have made, you know, and separated. But I'm looking at another one that's nearby, and these are quite different in size, so I kind of think that these might have been quite old nails. And this is one of my favorite things, and I don't know that there's any way to see this. There is a set of wheels, and I wonder if this maybe was a baby pram right here. You can see the wheels right here. And I haven't got a clue what the story is on that, but I just think that is so neat. And here's the frame. I kind of think that maybe that was like a baby buggy or a pram at one time. And this one's Ben. Ben is a carriage horse, and he is, I forget, 22 years old or something, and he's being retired this year. Now this is Bobby Stubbs.
How you doing?
He and his,
Yes.
this is Deborah Hendricks. This is Bill and Mitty Hendricks' daughter.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, isn't she cute?
You take the pictures of the old house, huh? Hey, guys. All right, but snack. Come on, girl.
Oh, we started with your old house.
Come on, sweetie.
Bobby, can you remember when your house was supposed to have been built?
This one?
Uh-huh. Yeah, we're just filming outside.
I got a building permit for that porch, and it said 1878, or
Okay.
1879, I think
Okay.
what it said. No big. Come on, girl.
And Bobby Stubbs is a professional tugboat captain. Now, how many of those are there?
Retired.
Retired, but he keeps on working. They keep calling him to come in and work. We don't know what the timeline is on this place and what we'll be able to do and what the future of the property will be. So we're interested in kind of continuing on with this and seeing what's here. The row of these were a row of stalls to the left-hand side, and my sister-in-law, Mary Petrie Stevens, had those built for horses. But they replaced a lean-to that my father had out here that was attached to this old shed. Daddy was a professional well driller, and he would install pumps, and I can't remember the vintage. But we had a tree or something drop on it a few years ago. It was just left here after, I think they intended to do a well up here, and it just kind of ended up here. But it was a great big long thing. It was really, really cool. And Daddy owned this originally with his brothers. Then later, they left the well drilling business, and it seemed to be just Daddy and, you know, whoever he hired. And back there you can see, I don't know what they called it, kind of the derrick part of it going back. We have over here, Deborah, on the other side of that yellow cable guard, there is a tree growing up through a tractor wheel. We just love that. We think that is so cool. Daddy and his brothers just did all sorts of things, and we have not done any clearing here. But this is a Fordson tractor. Right here you can see the letters Fordson. And I can't help but wonder if the wheels over there that have the tree growing through it, you know, are perhaps from this. Very close in proximity, but I just don't know. And this shed fell a few years ago. Daddy used to have different things, tools here and all, and it was just great. The marsh is just this way, not on the river, but on the marsh. And they had a sawmill back in the day, and by the time when I was a little girl in the early 50s, there were just clumps of sawdust hills. And at that point, that was about the only reminder that there had been a sawmill there. And we're currently at the site of the old sawmill. I don't know what time period the sawmill was here, but there are obviously creosote poles and things that are out here from that time period. And we have little hills, and these were sawdust. And that was about all that was here as a very small child in the 50s at Frederica that was left of the sawmill. That line of trees across the marsh is a dike that goes over to a small 2-acre island called Palm Island. And Palm Island has a small dike at the other end also. And we don't know if this was a rice field or not. The earliest rice fields in Georgia were just up the road off the Stevens property. And this used to be a pond back in the day, and I remember having ice on it, and we used to have otters. You could see otters out here. This is still the bank of the Frederica River. This was here many years ago when I was a little kid, and it's an antique vehicle of some sort. It was a truck, and it just recently fell in. There again, a couple of years ago. You can see one of the wheels through here. Hadn't realized you could see one of the wheels. And we are driving now up towards Stevens Road. And here's the old car. We'll probably get that coming back in. And over here to the right is the sawmill site with a little bit of marsh, and that used to be a pond. And I remember that having otters. And here is the Fordson tractor shed. And coming up, this is I guess Mom had a dump truck or something for some reason or another. And this is, I believe, my brother Curtis's boat. Oh, actually, I have no idea. And there's a station wagon, I think, right next to it. Things are being reclaimed by the land. And off to the right, that was, I think, the last tenant maybe of the house up here had built a tree house for their kids. And it looks really cool. Looks like something out of Treasure Island or something. And we're going along, we're coming up to the main gate into 300 Stevens Road. The property continues all around it, but this is the little road that comes out to the dock and the old house. And there are several houses nearby, but it's almost hard to see them. Douglas Taylor, a cousin, has a house that's right over there. I was up here yesterday and I'd left the gate open, and 2 ladies on bicycles came riding up toward me up the river. They said they'd never seen the gate open before, so they decided to check it out. Yeah, it sounded like the sort of thing I do. And we're now on the road that goes over to Marshwood Stables. We're starting to see the private property sign over there and the gate. That was a boarding stables that a little riding co-op had for a number of years. And it operated from the late 70s until Mom passed away in 2004, and it might have gone slightly in 2005. Now, 400 Stevens Road and the Keep Out private, no turnaround. Oh my goodness, what do you think is up here? This is the Eugenia Price Joyce Blackburn estate, now owned by Eileen Humflett and her husband. She was Eugenia Price and Joyce's right-hand girl. The small gate to the left-hand side, isn't that wonderful the way it's overgrown? that is the Georgia Power easement, and we have a padlock on it, and Georgia Power has a padlock on it, and that's on Daddy's property, and that goes out to the marsh through there. And this pretty wooden gate here, this is one that was built by Eugenia Price, and it is partially on Daddy's property, Dad Mom's property. And Eugenia Price was having this thing built at the time, and Daddy came out here and he saw where it was, and he knew his property boundaries, and he said, Eugenia, you shouldn't do this. And she went on and on and on about, oh, how perfectly it was set and how beautiful and everything and idyllic and all that stuff. And she did such a song and dance that she finally swayed Daddy, and Daddy was very soft-hearted, and but he regretted that to his last days. He always told me, you know, to make sure that everyone knew that this gate was partially on his property. He was not giving that away. He really, really regretted that, and it really did worry him and eat on him. But anyway, they did a survey recently, and it's marked on there that, you know, it's partially on the family property, the Stevens family property. Uncle Ben sold this tract to Eugenia Price in the 60s, and then she brought in something like 2,000 dump truck loads of dirt to build this house. Now this is a Eugenia Price home. And occupied now by the Humflets, and they're very nice people. This home is currently for sale, and I think they want $3.9 million. It's on 4 acres of ground, and play area for the children. There's not a dock here. Jeannie Schilf, she was Jeannie Odell Kaufman. Now she's married to Roger Schilf. Owns the marsh here. Daddy and Uncle Ben did a little bit of a land swap on this, so Uncle Ben could sell this property to Eugenia Price. And here's the back of the house. And I remember coming up one time to visit, and just, you know me, I just walk in, and I think it's the only time I did it. And I came up, and Eugenia Price and Joyce Blackburn were sitting on the back porch, and they were both in their bras. I guess they were just airing. But it made an impression on me. And here's the marsh grass over here and the landscape, and it really is a beautiful home. And my goodness, you know, if I had an extra $3, $4, $5 million, my goodness, after taking care of Frederica, I would certainly just snap this baby right up. It is very pretty.
Go back in the family.
That's right, back in the family. It started out there, and we'll return it. And over to the right-hand side, you're seeing a Georgia Power pole, and here's that easement. And Deborah, maybe when it's cooler in the fall, you walk down there, it goes right to the marsh, and it's very attractive. That's part of that easement over there. This is a very narrow peninsula of land, but it is about 4 acres, and it's certainly very, very beautiful. It is very pretty, and it's supposed to be designed kind of like southern plantation type of some sort. Eugenia Price used to keep a telephone in this oversized mailbox. I forgot to mention that to Deborah. We're coming up on the gate again. And she would, her guests could then telephone the house to let them know when they were here, and they could come and unlock the gate. Eugenia and Joyce called that house back there the Dodge, because they were very fond of Anson Dodge. She had written, her first novel was Beloved Invader, about the life of Anson Dodge and his happenings and his wife, and 2 wives actually, and one at a time. But also, they got so much publicity and all that it gave them a chance to escape. It was kind of like a little private refuge, and that's another reason they called it the Dodge. This is the other end of Palm Island. And I think it's about 2 acres in size, if I remember correctly. Can Can you see it over there? You can see it a little bit from where I am over here. I don't know if that's better or not. We won't be able to see the dike today. It's through a lot of overgrowth that way, and the weeds and things and snakes are a little too thick right now. Ticks and snakes and no telling what. Oh, we're seeing some bugs around too. But there's a shorter dike that goes over to Palm Island from this end, and it's unbroken. There's a break in the dike, the longer side. And we think at one point probably the marsh inside might have been used for rice, but we aren't certain about that. They did turn cattle out in the marsh to graze. And just up the road from here was we've heard the earliest rice fields in Georgia. So it could well have been used as a small rice field in there. This is the opening part, and it goes off toward the Frederica River and Dunbar Creek and Frederica River. But on the other side of Palm Island, there's the enclosure of marsh. And this gate is very beautiful. Joyce Blackburn's mother absolutely loved this gate, and she did a fabulous portrait of it, a painting of it, and it's over in Joyce's home, in her room at Magnolia Manor, where she's retired now. Well, anyway, this is the back side of that famous mailbox, and there's the front side. Surprising, it has both sides, and it is a really large mailbox. So anyone out there with an extra $4 million or something, go for it. Over this way through these palmettos, and that has really overgrown, there's the short dike that goes over to Palm Island. Gee, why wouldn't we want to try that in snake season, huh? I think there's a little easier way to get through in some of these, but anyway, we are now coming up the other side. Deborah's continuing to film on the little drive into 300 Stevens Road. It belonged to my father, Curtis Stevens. And, the Fordson tractor shed again, and the GMC dump truck. We're just kind of gradually going by and seeing it from a different side. And up here, we're coming up on Deborah's vehicle. Over here is where the old tractor wheels have trees growing out of them, especially that one over there. Just think that's marvelous. And over here, this cab fell in a couple of years ago, but just the most marvelous old truck, and it's been out here ever since I was a little girl. I just think that's so cool. And here we are, back up here to Stevens Road and Deborah's truck. And Deborah has warned me that we're about out of time in this tape. She said a while back that we had 4 minutes, and it's an hour tape. Can you believe that I've been chatting for an hour? I go, well, this woman never shut up.